The bill and draft report are before you, and your staff was given the opportunity to view both prior to this meeting. Thanks to the budget deal and to Chairman Rogers, we're able to hold our markup early this year. Our allocation under the $1 trillion, $14 billion deal is $52.029 billion, an increase of $1.17 billion over the 2014 enacted levels. That's the good news. The bad news is the FHA receipts are down almost $3 billion from last year. That doesn't mean that FHA is going broke, just that CBO estimates more home buyers are financing and refinancing their homes through the private market. Like appropriators do, we made choices and set priorities. The bill before you recommends funding levels to keep the FAA air traffic controllers and safety inspectors on the job, and proposes some increases for safety programs, especially to address the challenges we're seeing with hazardous materials and railroads. This bill provides sufficient funds to keep all families currently receiving housing assistance under the umbrella of the various HUD programs. We recommend funding the base Community Development Block Grants Program at $3 billion, which is almost the same level as last year. For the surface programs, we provide funding with fiscal year level funding with fiscal year 2014, and it's consistent with last year of MAP 21, contingent upon reauthorization. I don't need to remind anyone here about the balances in the Highway Trust Fund, and I'm hopeful the authorizers will come up with a plan to bring these critical programs into 2015. The budget proposed and assumed a lot of new authorizing for this year, both in DOT and HUD, and we did carry a number of provisions last year. However, a whole new surface program and pages of new HUD legislation are best left to the authorizers for their evaluation and judgment. I believe we struck a good balance between housing and transportation and the various provisions members asked us to consider. The beauty of regular order and an open process is members and the public are able to see the bill and propose amendments. While the full committee has not noticed up the meeting to mark up the bill, we anticipate being ready for a full committee on the week of May 19th. If you have any ideas or amendments, I would ask that you hold those amendments until the full committee markup. I know Chairman Granger has a hearing here in a few minutes, so we'll try to expedite the process. Before I recognize Mr. Pastor for his comments, I'd like to thank him for his hard work on the subcommittee, the full committee, and in Congress. On behalf of the people of Arizona, you've done a great job, and it's been a pleasure and an honor for me to work with you, and we look forward to many happy days in the future. And I also like to thank all the members of the subcommittee for participating in the process, your interest and support on the bill, and all the bills we've had the privilege of doing in this great committee. It's been fun, at times maddening, but at the end of the day, when you see a program you funded or made better to make a positive difference for a family back home, you remember why we signed up for this job in the first place. So thank you very much, and I'd like to yield to my good friend, Mr. Pastor, for his statement.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you for listening to our concerns and for keeping an open dialogue as we have moved through this process. You received a tough allocation. As you said, on paper, it looks like the allocation is nearly $1.2 billion higher than last year, but that's not the case. Because of the sharp differences between O&D and CBO's receipt estimates for FHA programs, this bill is actually $1.8 billion lower than fiscal year 2014 bill. With that in mind, the chairman did try to take care of safety missions of the Department of Transportation and try to ensure that everyone housed in fiscal year 2014 will be housed in fiscal year 2015. However, many of the programs are frozen at last year's level and others are cut even deeper. For example, FTA's capital investment grant program is cut by $252 million. Amtrak's capital grants is cut by $200 million. Transit research is cut by $28 million. HUD's home program is cut by $300 million. Housing for people with AIDS is cut by $27 million. And HUD's lead hazard reduction and healthy homes program is cut by $40 million, or 36%. I also have concerns with some of the legislative riders that are included in this bill. They wade into areas that have traditionally been handled by the authorizing committee and could hamper our ability to get this bill. However, there are bright spots. The House bill, for the first time, includes funding for the National Infrastructure Investment Program, formerly known as TIGER. The chairman also took great care of the programs of the Federal Aviation Administration and included a solid funding level for CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Program. I also want to thank Chairman Latham. Early in our careers, we had the chance to develop a working relationship, and so it's been fun working with him in this committee. And I have to tell you that when you get to know somebody for a number of years, it's easier to work out the problems and work out the legislation that you have before you. So I want to thank the chairman because he has been very inclusive and has had open dialogue, and it's been a great friendship. And you're right, and a year from now, either in Florida or Arizona, we'll probably be watching this on C-SPAN. I also want to thank the members of the subcommittee, both Chairman Rogers, who's been very helpful in my time in appropriations, and ranking member Anita Lowy, and all the other members of the subcommittee who have been very helpful. So it's been a pleasure working with you, Mr. Chairman, and with the great committee. I look forward to seeing this bill to its completion, and with that, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pastor. Chairman Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you and Mr. Pastor for putting out a good, tough bill. As Ranking Member Pastor said, we didn't give you a lot to work with to begin with on your allocated time. But you've done with it a lot of good work. So I want to thank you for you and the staff for putting together this bill. This, of course, as has been noted, is the last bill that Chairman Latham and both Chairman Latham and Mr. Pastor will participate in the process. Both of you have been great public servants. They say that still water runs deep, and if that's true, Chairman Latham and Pastor are followers of that rule. So I want to thank them for their service to the Congress, and to their districts, and to the country, and especially on this committee and this subject for all these years. As we've seen from the stagnation in the economy in recent years, the overspending, overtaxing, over-regulating that this administration continues to advocate is a drag on job creation. Millions of people in the country have simply pulled out of the labor market altogether. The bill before us is yet another example of this Congress, especially this committee, commitment to restoring restraint and thoughtfulness to the budgeting process, while targeting investments in our nation's critical transportation infrastructure and creating an environment for job growth. This bill, as has been said, contains $52.029 billion discretionary spending. Will help ensure that our highways keep moving, our airways remain safe, and our nation's most vulnerable citizens have access to affordable housing options. Unquestionably, the development, repair, and expansion of our nation's surface transportation infrastructure is critical to our economic competitiveness, and there's near universal recognition that we're woefully behind. I'm hopeful that our colleagues on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee can devise a way to fix the problems facing the Highway Trust Fund before that account runs into the red this summer or early fall. Allowing those funds to run dry will only add to the uncertainty to the economy. This bill rejects the administration's attempt to move highway programs onto the mandatory side of the ledger. That's a common request from this administration. But taken as a whole, mandatory spending continues to rise at an unsustainable rate. It's unconscionable that the administration would continue to try to grow the mandatory budget, considering the fact that such spending ties the hands of Congress and the people, and puts even the most basic critical programs at risk. So I'm glad to see that this bill upholds Congress's constitutionally endowed power of the purse. I'm proud that we continue to uphold our commitment to the American people, move our bills through regular order, and at a quick pace. As has been noted, the two bills that have now passed the House floor, and the two bills that are in either subcommittee or full committee right away, it's record-breaking. We've not done this early, at least since 1974, with the advent of the current Budget Act, and possibly even before that, although we can't find the records of when that took place. So, Mr. Chairman, this is a good bill. Thank you for it. I think it deserves all of our support.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lady from New York, the other ranking member of the full committee as well.
And I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the efforts of Chairman Latham, Ranking Member Pastor, to put this bill together. The Chair and Ranking Member exemplify the spirit and the history of bipartisan cooperation on this subcommittee. They will certainly be missed. I wish them both the best in the next chapter of their lives. Maybe we'll have to come visit you in Florida, Arizona. Totaling slightly more than $52 billion, the bill may appear to be an increase over FY14, but it actually creates $1.8 billion less because of much lower than expected FHA and Ginnie Mae receipts. Unfortunately, the investments in this bill aren't enough to maintain the country's highway and transit infrastructure. Without additional investments, our national infrastructure system will fall into further disrepair. In addition, I am specifically concerned about cuts to the following critical programs. Amtrak's capital funding is decreased by $200 million below FY14, which will defer critical repairs. Capital investment grants which support new subway, light rail, commuter projects are $809 million below the request, and the bill contains no funding for transit projects that are in the pipeline. Tiger would receive a paltry $100 million, while I am pleased the majority included it in its bill for the first time. The proposed level is insufficient. And on the housing side, both home and the Public Housing Capital Fund, which are vital for the rehabilitation and modernization of our country's affordable housing stock, face sharp decreases. At $700 million, home is funded at its lowest level since the program began in 1992. And the Public Housing Capital Fund is funded below the sequester level. Additionally, I'm deeply disappointed that two new rail safety initiatives that were included in the President's request did not make it into the bill. These initiatives were designed to help commuter railroads install positive train control and address the serious safety issues surrounding the transport of crude oil. Communities across the country, including many in my district, live in fear of another crude oil train derailment, like the one that occurred in Quebec, Canada last July, which killed 47 people and forced the evacuation of an additional 2,000. I also object to the inclusion of a California high-speed rail rider and oppose the addition of 3 new riders, lifting truck weight limits in 3 states. These new riders will be controversial and will only hinder the bill's progress through the Congress. I do want to compliment the chairman on including adequate funding for pipelines and hazardous materials safety administration, National Transportation Safety Board, the Community Development Block Grant Program, and the Federal Aviation Administration. It is my hope that we can improve this bill as the process moves forward, and I urge the Senate Appropriations Committee to include appropriate levels for important programs that were underfunded in this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Lowy. Are there any members who wish to make a statement or comments? Are there any amendments? There better not be. One thing I admitted earlier, but I just want to publicly thank the staff, both on the majority and the minority side, doing a great job. And many hours of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole as far as getting this bill done. But thank you all very, very much for all your hard work and dedication. We're in the start of the process, and hopefully we can get through to the end this year. So,
Mr. Chairman, let me just say from the rest of us, thank you for your service to the ranking member. I'm new to this, and we look forward to the relationship like the two of you had. And I didn't know what to expect when I got here a year ago, but you're certainly a role model. I never knew I'd grow to hate 3 little words, contingent upon authorization.
I don't know where I'm from. Iowa. Where does Florida thing come from?
Oh, you're tan and you're
Hug my wife.
He's assuming you were from.
I got too many grandchildren back in Iowa. Before I would ask for a motion, I'd like to remind everyone to please leave all the markup documents on the table. The bill and report are not to leave the room. If there's no other statements, I'll recognize Ms. Granger for a motion to report the bill to full committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I now move that the bill and the report be reported favorably to the full committee.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no. The bill is approved, and I ask unanimous consent that the staff be authorized to make technical and conforming changes without objection. So ordered. Thank you, everyone. And the subcommittee is adjourned.